Okay, so we are now on video 2 of day 1 of unit 1. We're going to finish out the 5 major religions that we started talking about in our last video. We're going to pick up with Judaism. Judaism is the first of the monotheistic religions that we're going to look at. If you look at the image here, you can see many different symbols that represent Judaism. Take just a couple seconds to look over it. You can hit pause if you want to. Do you see anything that you are familiar with? Some of the images you may recognize are the Star of David, a menorah, a dreidel, the Torah, perhaps the ram's horn. Those are all important symbols that represent Judaism. The holy days that are most important to Judaism, in particular Hanukkah, Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, and Passover, those are just a few of the holy days that Jews observe. The Sabbath is also a very important religious day for Judaism as well. So Judaism began in Europe, and it's now, and when I say it began in Europe, I mean a long, long time ago it began in Europe, and then it moves down onto the Saudi Arabian Peninsula, close to where Israel is today. But we'll talk about that part later. So Judaism is now the main faith, which is in Israel. It's a country that was created specifically for the Jews to have as a homeland after World War II. We're going to discuss this in much greater detail later on in the year. But for now, just tuck this away in your brain. I promise you're going to need to remember that a little bit later on. The patriarchs of Judaism, or the important founders of Judaism, or people in Judaism, are Abraham, Isaac, who was Abraham's son, and Jacob, who was Abraham's grandson. Another important prophet to Judaism is Moses. Moses was the one who received the 10 Commandments from God on Mount Sinai. 10 Commandments, they gave a basic outline for morality, which about 2/3 of the world's population still follow today. Things like you should not murder, you should not steal from one another, those sorts of things. The Torah is the written records and beliefs of the Jews. This is their sacred text, the Torah. It's the first part of the Jewish Bible, and it's also the first 5 books of the Old Testament in the Christian Bible. The Torah is written in Hebrew, which is the oldest of the Jewish languages. Their main beliefs, while there are many beliefs in the Jewish faith, there are 3 main ones that you need to know. Jews believe that there is only one God, and that God is all-knowing, all-powerful, and eternal. And that is what makes Judaism a monotheistic faith, because you'll remember that monotheistic means the belief in one God. They believe that this Messiah or Savior will come, and that the dead will be resurrected. The spiritual leaders of Judaism, they are called rabbis, and their places of worship are called synagogues. There are more than 1.7 million Jews worldwide, but the majority of Jews live in Israel and in the United States. The most important city for Judaism is Jerusalem, which is the capital city of Israel. We're going to talk about the Holocaust in a later unit. And during the Holocaust, you may already know this, but over 6 million Jews lost their life due to anti-Semitic feelings that were popular at the time in that region of the world. Anti-Semitism is a dislike of the Jews. That's the vocabulary term that you need to be familiar with. You've heard me refer to Israel several times today. Israel was created as a homeland for Jews after the Holocaust, which I believe I've already mentioned once. But again, we're going to talk about that in much greater detail later on. Christianity, this is our next religion we're going to talk about. It's the largest of the religions that we're going to discuss. It has 2.1 billion followers worldwide. It's based on the teachings of Jesus Christ, who was a Jewish man that lived more than 2,000 years ago in the Holy Land. Holy Land being the area of Israel, what is now Israel. The Bible is the sacred text of Christianity. It's comprised of 2 parts. You have the Old Testament and the New Testament. In the New Testament, it discusses the life and teachings of Jesus Christ, and Christians believe that Jesus Christ is the Messiah. Church doctrine, which is also known as the official church teachings, these were determined by church councils long ago, and it is still followed to this day. Their main beliefs. There are three main beliefs for Christianity that the SOL requires you to know. But just like Judaism, there are many beliefs of the Christian faith, just like all of these religions, actually. There are many different beliefs, but the SOL has just a few that they really want you to focus on. You must know that Christians believe that there is only one God, and they call him God. Because of this belief, again, this makes them a monotheistic faith. Christians also believe that Jesus is the Son of God and that he lived a pure and sinless life. But he was sent to earth as a sacrifice so that humanity did not need to pay for the consequences of their sins. Another major belief of Christians is that there is life after an earthly death. Spiritual leaders in the Christian faith, they are called ministers or priests. And sometimes you might hear the phrase or the word bishop or preacher or pastor or nun. These are all spiritual leaders within the Christian faith as well. The two most well-known holy days for Christians, of course, are Christmas and Easter. Jerusalem is also a city of importance to Christians as well because this is where Jesus Christ was crucified. So in 1054, there was a split in the church, and folks had decided that the Pope just had way too much power. This is going to lead to the Protestant Reformation, which we're going to discuss a whole much greater detail in our next unit. For now, you just need to know that these splits result in three different groups of Christians. So you have Eastern Orthodox, which are led by patriarchs, Roman Catholic, which are led by the Pope, and Protestant, which includes denominations like Baptist, Presbyterian, Calvinist, Methodist, those different denominations. Okay, Islam. This is going to be the fifth and final religion that we are going to discuss today. Islam is the second largest practiced religion in the world with over 1 billion followers. Those who follow Islam are called Muslims. Muslims believe that Islam was revealed to the final prophet Muhammad over 1,400 years ago in Mecca, which is in Saudi Arabia. While Jesus, Moses, and Abraham are all important prophets of God, Muhammad is the final and most important of these prophets according to the Islamic faith. Allah is the Arabic word for God, and the word Islam itself means submission to the will of God. The religious leaders in Islam are called imam. The sacred text for Muslims is called the Quran. You can see this spelled one of two ways, either with a Q or a K, just like you see there on the screen. It is possible that you will see it written either way on your SOL test, so please be aware of that and be familiar with the two different spellings of that word. Holy days for Muslims. They have a few. Milad un-Nabi is one. Al-Hijrat is another one. But the most important holy days is the period of Ramadan, which occurs in the 9th month of the Islamic calendar. This is where Muslims fast during daylight hours. It's important for you to also know that the place of worship for people who practice or follow Islam is called a mosque. Okay, so what are the main beliefs of Islam? Islam is a monotheistic faith. Muslims believe that Allah is the one and only God. As I mentioned before, it also believes that Muhammad is the last and most important prophet of Allah. The 5 pillars of Islam, which you can see a graphic here describing them, these are the most important practices to Muslims. There are 5 obligations that Muslims believe should be done in order to live a good and responsible life. These pillars represent making a statement of faith that there is no God but Allah and Muhammad his prophet, fasting during Ramadan, praying facing Mecca 5 times a day, giving to those who are less fortunate, and making a pilgrimage to Mecca at least once in your lifetime. Maybe you remember your World History 1 teacher last year showing you a video about the Hajj. I mentioned Mecca just a second ago. Mecca is the holiest of cities for Muslims. This is where the Kaaba is located, which was built by Abraham and is a focal point during daily prayers. Medina is the second holiest city to Islam because this is where the Prophet Muhammad is buried. So you absolutely must know that the two most important cities to Muslims are Mecca and Medina. There is a third city that is of importance to them, and I'm making sure you know this as well because you'll understand in our next video. Jerusalem, which I mentioned as an important city for Christianity as well as Judaism, it's also an important city to Islam. This is where the Dome of the Rock is located and where Muslims believe that Muhammad ascended to heaven to receive the divine commandments. Okay, so these are the major concepts that you need to know about each of the world religions that we discussed in World History 2. Please make sure you have your chart completed. If you have any questions or you didn't get the chart completely filled in, I'll give you time to ask questions next class and we'll get that taken care of.